sinners and saints. Dust off those horns and halos. It's time for Alan After Dark.
Sinners and saints, please forgive me. I am still struggling with my COVID cough. I know it's been almost 2 weeks now. And this morning, I learned of the death of another friend. And it's really kind of got me really jumbled up inside, a ball of pent-up anger and depression that is pushing me into a more stressful mood than I wanted to be. When I heard this morning of the death of a friend, it did throw me for a loop because it came unexpectedly. I had no idea that he was sick. I didn't know he had cancer. As I've said before, as we get older, death is just part of your everyday life, it seems. And also, I mentioned before how there seems to be a lot of deaths around the holidays, around Christmas and New Year's. It always seems to happen that way for whatever reason. But with the death of this friend, and let's call him Kurt, it was more than just a friend. I think I want to take a few minutes to lay out the reason why and also kind of establish what this episode is going to be about. When I'd heard of his death, I don't know, I just started waxing sentimental and I started looking through old pictures and things, and I stumbled upon a picture of myself, my first grade class picture. And I was this little boy with long blonde bangs, I guess the cereal bowl kind of haircut, like the Moe of the Three Stooges haircut kind of thing. And I had this little innocent face with oversized ears, and I absorbed the memory and the image. I thought to myself, you are a really strong little boy. And I think about all of us, those of you who are listening, and those in the LGBTQIA community, that we're out here, we're still alive. It can be a struggle, but look at all that we went through. And we were all brave little 5 and 6 year old kids, maybe unaware of our sexuality, definitely not aware of where our lives were heading. And I want to dedicate this episode of Alan After Dark to all of us who, when you look back on your life and you realize all the things that you have survived to get where you are today. Now, this friend of mine who passed away, Kurt, well, let's go back 20 years ago. I was not in a good place financially. I was struggling. I was trying to go to school at night. I had a full-time job that wasn't paying me very well at that time. I could see the writing on the wall. My debt was too high and I couldn't cover it. So I thought, well, I need somehow to find a second job without affecting my first job and my classwork. Well, Kurt happened to own a bar, a gay bar and grill in town. And one night when I was there at happy hour, drowning my sorrows, trying to forget about all the problems I had at the time, he had mentioned that he was looking for someone to work several shifts a week. And I just said, what about me? Would you be willing to hire someone like me? And of course he asked, well, do you have your ABC card and all that? And I'm like, no. Have you ever worked service before? No. But you know who I am, and you know that I'm a hard worker, that I have a full-time job, and that I'm dedicated. You know that I'm a decent person. And he said, all right, here's the deal. If you show up here Tuesday night, I'll know that you really are being serious, and I will train you and I'll hire you. I showed up on that Tuesday night. He did his best to show me the basics, and I went to work there, working at first Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturday nights, which in a no short time became too much for me to handle. And he was willing to work with me on working the shifts out to where it would not hurt the rest of my life. Well, people that knew me and saw me there and was surprised to see that I was working there, a lot of them just kind of thought it was a joke. And one of my good friends, bless his heart, he actually told me when he was there, he says, Alan, I'll give you 6 weeks. You might last 6 weeks. Well, I wound up lasting almost 9 years. And those 9 years provided me with enough extra money to get my ass out of trouble and set my finances back in order to where I am now. I'll never forget that. He took a chance on me when pretty much no one else would. And yes, it was a mutual beneficial relationship. I gave everything I could when I was there working, and I was pulling down some long shifts on Friday nights, but I became a celebrity in the community. Everybody knew me at that point. You actually do become famous when you work in a gay bar. But I want to make clear that it wasn't a bed of roses either. When you're pulling down 2 jobs and going to school, you are exhausted all the time. And I can distinctly remember, I guess with the first couple of years when I was working at the bar, my Saturday shift began at 9 p.m. and I worked to close. And I can remember driving on a cold winter's night to start work that night. And I remember crying in the car heading there because I was just so worn out. But patting myself on the back, I did it. I got through it. And it made me stronger. And I want to think that looking at that picture of myself when I was in first grade, that little sweet boy, all the things that he's gone through to get to today. And what would we tell ourselves if we could go back in time right now? Would we tell ourselves anything about a situation that we should handle differently? Well, I mentioned before, there was the one guy that I met. I think that my life would have been better off without meeting him. That's water under the bridge now, but, I probably would go back and tell him to avoid that guy. But, I could sit here and this episode could be a woe is me type thing. But I guess, honestly, thinking about it, well, first of all, you all know this, especially if you're in the gay community, that you have to be tough right off the bat. It's a beautiful life, but it is a fucking hard life to live, is it not? You just never know when you're going to be blindsided by someone who's an asshole, a homophobe, a religious fanatic who is blinded by their hatred and don't even understand their own Bible. You just never know where that's going to come at you, even from state government or federal government or where. You just never have a clue. So in just living your life, you are a strong person. And when I look at that picture of myself, I remember being that little boy put on a school bus early in the morning. It's still dark, not having a clue that very first time what was really going to happen, kind of getting an idea of where I was supposed to go, what classroom I was supposed to go to, but not sure about anything, and getting on this big bus. I really am proud of that boy. That boy is me. And all of you listening, you've gone through the same things. You all are as tough as anybody else, probably tougher. And thinking about all the things that you've gone through, you really should pat yourself on the back. You should be your biggest cheerleader because it took some guts to get through all those formative years. You can go back to some of my earliest episodes, and I do talk about those years and what I went through. And I know that my story is just one of millions of stories that are very similar. I even had teachers, English teachers, female English teachers, who talked about how they felt homosexuality was disgusting and criminal in the classroom in front of a whole class of kids while I was sitting there. If you go back to that episode, I really was shocked by that because I always viewed my English teachers, in particular the female ones, to be more open-minded. And boy, was I wrong. But we all dealt with that. We all went through things like that. And we got through it, didn't we? Because, not everybody does. I mean, the bullying, the constant harassment, the lack of support from family, parents, teachers, friends, not everybody can handle that. And I understand. But I think that now, I doubt that there are any teachers, even at the high school or college level, that would dare say such negative things about a group of people when they potentially could have a student in their class who is gay or lesbian or bi or trans. How would they feel if they realized it was them that led a student to commit suicide? Would they actually feel remorse, or would they just be in denial like they are about most things? Because if they really did their research and talked to gay people, they would understand it better and know that it's not a sin, that it is a natural occurrence for a certain number of people. But if you have another agenda, I guess you don't care about that. I don't want to ever have that burden on me to think that I could say something that would lead someone to take their life. But I'll just say this too, and this is for me personally. There's no one as of right now that could say anything about me that would drive me to that decision. In fact, if someone says something like that about me, I'm probably going to flaunt it even more in front of their face. But that's how time and experience has changed me. As you get older, you truly do get to the point where you don't give a fuck anymore and you just live your life. Granted, living your life can get you in trouble still. And who knows, we could be in a version of Nazi Germany in less than a couple of months. But at least we've gotten to this point now to where there are a lot more people that understand and aren't so anti-gay that they would stand with Nazis and allow us to be put in internment camps or exterminated just for being gay. Oh, and just for the record, I love being gay. I am so happy that I am gay. It is who I was meant to be. And regardless of how I say things, I am, number one, extremely pleased that I was born this way. And I will say this, though. If you are a heterosexual person, be grateful that you have it easier than gay people do. You can just live your life however you want to, and you don't get targeted, at least for that. If you're like us, just by going out on a date, you could be attacked by somebody. It tends to be rare now, but when we saw the 4 years of the orange turd before, hate crimes went up, threats went up. So I would expect the same happening this time. So if you are a heterosexual person, be grateful that you are and that you don't have to deal with all this extra harassment and torment. I should say potential harassment, potential torment, because no matter how bad it got, I never have regretted being a gay person. And once again, for the record, I had no choice in the matter. I was born gay. I am gay. That's just it. I can't help it if people can't deal with it. You know what, heterosexuals? Also be a little bit jealous that you're not gay, because we have more fun than you all do. I'm just teasing a little bit. Get over it. You can handle it. My fifth grade teacher came to mind. Let's call her Nancy. Nancy, well, let's just put it this way. Looking back on it, she was a lesbian. Very butch. She was a really mean teacher as well. But she was also the coach for a lot of the girls' athletic teams. And she was one of our coaches for track for both boys and girls. I remember how she tried not to appear to be this butch lesbian, and she tried to act like she was straight. But I can remember my mom, who was very homophobic. She would say things like, I don't believe she should be going on these overnight trips with these girls. It just doesn't look right. And I could not ever really put it together what she meant back then, but she was implying that she knew she was a lesbian and that lesbians, like all gay people, must be child molesters. That's what she was getting at, I'm positive, even though she never said it that way. I had heard just recently that she had passed away. And I wonder, she was 76 or 78, I guess. 78, I think. And I wonder, did she ever come out? Did she ever get to live her life freely and with someone that she might have loved? I never knew, but she did live in the same area that she always did. I have to wonder about her. How did she live her life? And did she live a life of happiness, or did she live a life in a closet just for survival purposes? She could have always left, I know, but some people's bond with their family is stronger than other things going on in their life. So maybe she chose her family over having a life with someone she loved, or living as an openly lesbian woman. It really does reflect those times. And if you still lived where I came from, yes, I've heard that people are more open and not so judgmental, but most of them still are. And if you came from the generation that my fifth grade teacher came from and I came from, you will always have a little bit of that sense of protection for yourself. You'll always be on guard. I just wish that maybe had she been able to be open with her sexuality, maybe she would have been a nicer person. Damn, that's just me being judgmental, isn't it? For all I know, she was always going to be a hateful person. She could have been totally open and out for all I know, and she's just mean. You know, sexuality really doesn't have any bearing on a person's personality. Right? We all know gay people that are total assholes. Hell, maybe you're an asshole. Maybe I am. Sometimes I'm sure I am, but not always. A lot of times I'm as sweet as pie. Well, sort of. Yeah. Years after I graduated high school, I did discover some of my classmates were gay. I never really discovered my own classmates, the ones in my class, in my grade. But I had my suspicions, and I still wonder to this day about them. What would it have been like had we been able to come out and maybe have our own little club or something, a support group at school? It would have been hard, especially when you had teachers that were so vocally anti-gay. I don't know how we would have done it, but it could have been an amazing difference that it could have made with all of us. You know, though, you would have been actually putting a target on your back if you were living openly at school. There were people that were so vicious and cruel that you would have probably had to leave the school and find somewhere else to go. And good luck with that, too, because I don't think the schools in other counties would have been any better as far as being welcoming to a gay student. I'm actually shocked that they apparently do have a gay-straight alliance at the high school that I went. Now, I'm just really surprised that they don't receive pushback like we would have. That's the way time is changing. Things do progress. People do realize the truth and not get caught up in some sort of bogus religious fanaticism that makes gay people the enemy of America or wherever. But wouldn't it have been great if we could have even secretly talked with each other and we could have shared our fears and know that there were other people that were going through the same thing? It's water under the bridge now, though, isn't it? What's the point of really thinking about that other than maybe I could have built perhaps some lifelong friendships with high school classmates that I really did like? But then again, all the challenges that I went through throughout my life, basically by myself, they made me the strong person that I am now. But as I've said many times before, I really don't want the younger generations to have to go through what we went through to get to the point that we are now. I'm just afraid that they are going to have to deal with it, and they may not have the skills that this older generation has in flying under the radar and still living your life in a way that keeps you alive. But you know what? We're survivors. We'll adapt. We'll take care of business. And we'll get through these next 4 years and come out even stronger. And gay people will still be around long after the orange turd is dead. Thank you for listening to this episode of Alan After Dark. I know it's been laced with COVID coughs and a little bit crazily random, but I hope you've had a good time. I hope you'll come back and see me next week. Remember, take life by the balls and be real. We'll see you soon.